collectors, and welcome to another Bossk's Bounty video, and welcome to episode 239 of our Bossk's Bounty. This is the weekly Q&A series that drops every Sunday, where I take your questions from the comments section below and do my best to answer them. So if you do have a question for next week's episode and you would like to be featured in the video, be sure to leave your question in the comment section of this video. We've had a few reveals from New York Comic Con in the last day or so, which is pretty cool, so I'm sure there is lots to talk about. Having said that, if you do happen to enjoy this video, hit the like button down below, subscribe if you are new. And this episode of our Bossk's Bounty 239 is sponsored by VC39, and I do apologise, I looked absolutely everywhere for my carded sample of Luke Skywalker Death Star Escape. Now, I don't have that figure loose because, being brutally honest, the figure is a pretty poor figure. But it's a nice card back. I'll leave a picture of it on the screen right now so you can see it. But yeah, good release in terms of card back, not so much in terms of the figure. So a couple of things before we get on to this week's questions. Just want to say thank you to everybody that was in the chat for the live stream last night, last figure standing. We are now down to 4 characters, and voting for those are live now, and the link for you to be able to cast your votes is in the description of this video if you wanted to do that. So we are now at the business end of there. 4 really good characters left, you know, from a wide range of Star Wars, which is pretty good to see. The next thing that I want to say is thank you so much to my latest channel member, who goes by the name of Pop Culture Tourist. So thank you for becoming a member of the channel. Really appreciate it, buddy. And finally, a parcel arrived at my PO box. Completely unexpected. There's the PO box address upside down, but I have opened it so I can just quickly look what was inside, and I want to read out the note and just show you the contents. And it says, "Greetings, Tim. First, I want to thank you for all the wonderful VC news and reviews. I love your channel and all that you do. Thank you so much." It says, "You and I chatted briefly in the comments of your Star Wars, the Vintage Collection Jetpack Trooper Jedi Survivor VC 336 video, and I mentioned the Imperial Jump Trooper from The Force Unleashed. Released standalone in 2008, but repacked in a 2-pack Toys R Us exclusive in 2010. I wanted to get you one of those. Not sure if it's anything you'd want to do a comparison video of. There are plenty of different styles, and it's now more than a month on by the time you get this, but I thought you'd like the figure nonetheless. I hope you enjoy the figure, and again, thank you for all of you do." And that is from Troy Pacelli. Last Call with Troy Pacelli on YouTube. There you go. He's got a YouTube channel if you want to check that out. I do remember the conversation that we were having, Troy, and this figure arrived completely unexpected. So thank you so much. Let's take a look at what you sent. So first of all, there was actually 2 things in the parcel, and the first one is this. And I've got to say, buddy, I do not have this. I've never seen this before. I don't really know what it's from, but it's going to go very nicely in my Bossk Focus collection, where I've got lots of different Bossks from different lines and artwork that people have sent me, all kinds of different stuff, and I've never seen this before, so thank you so much. It's going to go, as I say, very, very nicely with the rest of the things that I have, so thank you, buddy, for that. And this is the figure that you were talking about. This is what Troy sent me. So this is the Force Unleashed Imperial Jump Trooper, and I've put the new Vintage Collection version here so we can just take a quick look. I can see what you mean about the similarities, and I will definitely open this figure up in one of my opening figures videos for sure, and then we can bring that one in and have a real good sort of comparison. I opened up the Evo Trooper not so long ago as well. There he is there, look, and they're quite similar as well, so maybe we'll do a comparison of all 3. But just want to say, Troy, thank you so much for the generosity, buddy. It really is appreciated. And, you know, when things arrive out of the blue like that, it makes it even more special. So thank you. All right, then. So the first question is from Anonymous Apotamus, and he says, "Howdy, Bossk. Greetings from Florida. Question for next week. The Black Series just revealed a new Commander Cody in the throwback Revenge of the Sith packaging, and it looks incredible. Would you have any interest for something similar in TVC, and how would you prefer it to be done? Using Cody as an example for TVC, I think he should be released standard on a TVC card back, then a retailer, fan channel or convention exclusive would be appropriate for the throwback packaging. This seems similar to what Black Series has been doing recently. Anyways, I'd love to hear what you have to say about it. Cheers, dude." So yeah, absolutely. I do have an opinion on it, and I just want to stress to everybody that's watching this, this is my opinion. It's not me telling Hasbro what to do. But I am not a huge fan of the Vintage Collection steering away from the classic card back, because this is what it's all about for me, the classic card backs, in terms of the throwback nostalgic element of it. I love the fact that we get new media figures on the classic card back. So if the Vintage Collection was to go back to something like this, I'm not really too sure what the point of it would be. It suits the Black Series because you can tell what they're trying to do there. They're trying to sort of entice some of, you know, the 3.75 inch collectors over to that line, and you know, whether we like that or not, that is kind of what they're doing. But I'm not too sure if I'd want an all new Commander Cody, you know, even though we might get him on a new card, then to be repacked in one of these. I don't really see the point in getting these in 3.75 inch. But as I said, that is just my opinion. I think the problem that we have with these Revenge of the Sith figures, regardless of the packaging, is that the Black Series are getting them and we're not. We need an all-new Commander Cody, and we need so much more from Revenge of the Sith and all of the prequels, in fact. And, you know, you do get a bit of the green-eyed monster, the whole jealousy, you know, sets in when we see what they're getting like that. But that packaging really doesn't do anything for me. Personally, I just prefer the figure inside it. It's an absolutely awesome Commander Cody, and that is what I want really more. But I would love him to be on a card like this. We have had other card styles in the Vintage Collection before, with the Ewoks cards and the Droids cards, but they were, again, the same as this. They were Kenner card backs. I just don't really see the point in going back to previous 3.75 inch packaging, if that makes sense, for 3.75 inch figures. Totally understand why the Black Series have done it, and it's not the first time they've done it. They've done it with the 40th anniversary cards. They did it with the Clone Wars cards, so it's nothing really new. But that's my sort of stance on it, really. I kind of just wish, for TVC anyway, that they would stick to that. But happy for other people to have a different opinion to that. C3PO Concept says, "What's up, sir? The return to Tatooine has got me in a New Hope mood. I'd like to see carded 4-pack with Wedge, Biggs and their droids R2A3 and R2F2. It's not Tatooine, but what do you think? I think the card backs would be great, even though I'm an opener." So yeah, this is actually something that we discussed on the live stream last night. We had Brett from Bantha Skull on, and one of his figures on his top 10 was one of the pilots from the Yavin battle. And I sort of said, you know, wouldn't it be cool if they maybe did a 2-pack, very much like the Sabine and Chopper ones, where you get the pilot and their droid. And that doesn't necessarily have to be just the Battle of Yavin. That could be from any media where we've had, you know, ships that also have a droid in them. So that's something that I would actually love to see them do. I think it'd be a pretty cool concept. Let me know in the comments section if you agree. So I'm with you there, buddy. Wedge, Biggs and their droids, I'm all for that, especially as we've kind of got the sculpt now. I don't really think it would be too difficult, but I would like them to do a new Astromech before they did all of those. Get away from that Build-A-Droid mold and give us a new one. Barada says, question for next week. Building off the vehicle related questions this week, one vehicle that I've wanted to see in a vintage style box for decades now is a TIE Bomber. Of course, I doubt the molds for that original 2002 TIE Bomber still exist, so it's possible that Hasbro would have to rebuild the vehicle from scratch, but it was featured in Rebels and we also got to watch them nuking Mandalore in the Book of Boba Fett. So it's not like these bombers have been completely missing from modern media. So do you think an all-new TIE Bomber released in the vintage style ESB box is even remotely likely? I mean, everything's possible, isn't it? But I've got to say that probably isn't something that I would think is immediately on Hasbro's mind, despite it featuring in lots of different media, as you say there. From a personal point of view, I would love for them to do it. I think the last one that was released was in the... Was there one in the Shadows of the Dark Side line? The same line that you could get the Bespin Twin Pod car and a few other vehicles as well. It's quite a good vehicle line, that. I think they did one in there, so maybe they still do have the molds for that. I really don't know, but I would like to see it in a vintage style box for sure. I love the TIE Fighters, all of the different ones. The Interceptors as well would be pretty cool as well. So whether it's remotely likely, I'm not so sure, but it's definitely something that I would get behind if other people wanted it as well. Lou Skywalker says, "Hey Tim, always look forward to your videos every Sunday. Question for next week. I recently picked up Han and Luke's newer Tauntauns. Here's the $1 million question. Is there a Vintage Collection Hoth gear hood up figure out there with barbell hips or spreadable hips to get him on his Tauntaun? Thanks from your biggest Canadian fan. Keep up the great work, buddy." So I believe that the Han Solo that came with the Tauntaun is hood down, right? And then the hood up version is the one from the Vintage Saga collection, and that one doesn't have the required hips. So in answer to your question, I don't think there is one out there that does that. I've mentioned the Tauntaun before. We've got Luke Skywalker's. There is a difference between the two, and it would be pretty cool if we got a Han Solo with maybe a swappable head with hood up, hood down. You could put Luke's lightsaber in there, for example, in a Vintage Collection style box. I think that would be pretty cool. I've mentioned it before. I would like for them to do that, and it would be a good way of getting the carded Han out there and, you know, reusing that Tauntaun, because it's still a really good creature, that one. And it would just go nicely with the TVC one for people that don't have it already. Anthony Hubley says, what do you think of possibly getting a Jedi Temple as a HasLab so we can get a lot of packing in Jedi figures that we don't have in the line, or would you rather a 4-pack of random Jedi figures? I've got to say, the Jedi Temple, I think if that was ever going to be any type of playset HasLab project, it would be absolutely massive. I mean, you think how big the Cantina's going to be. The Jedi Temple was a pretty damn big building, right? And I don't know, I can't even envisage just like an internal wall of the Jedi Temple as like a mini playset. I just don't sort of envisage them ever doing that. So for me, I would like all the Jedis involved, of course, especially from Revenge of the Sith. So I would have to go for a Jedi pack, but maybe not random ones, maybe actually ones that were actually featured in Revenge of the Sith. That would be pretty cool. But yeah, as for the Jedi Temple being a HasLab, it sounds cool, don't get me wrong, but yeah, from a practical point of view, I'm not too sure if that'd be possible. Darth Strange says, question for next week. I want to start by saying I'm a mock collector myself, but still want to ask, do you think us mock collectors are taking budget away from creating new figures or new tooling? We are always looking for that perfect card and bubble, and if we don't get it, most of us send it back for a replacement, which is costing Hasbro money for accepting the return and they shipping out a new one. They also lose money by not being able to resell that product again because it is damaged. I imagine this is happening a lot, and also with the bigger budget items like playsets and vehicles will cost them even more. I don't think so, really. I mean, it's an interesting question for sure, because, you know, we have been getting a lot of damaged cards recently with that bubble rub Ring of Death issue that we have, but I know that Star Action Figures in the UK have been pretty vocal about that in terms that they've been sending stock back. So, you know, that's on Hasbro. That's going to cost them money ultimately, and that's bad for business for sure. Whether it affects the budget or if they just say, look, we've got to sort this out, because at the end of the day, the Vintage Collection card is sacred. People, at least maybe 50% of the people that collect this stuff are carded collectors. So really, they need to be making sure that, you know, what they send out is in mint condition. But any collectible, right? Any collectible that people have these days, people keep them in their boxes. They want them to be mint. And I don't think it's for us to worry about whether Hasbro are losing money on that. They just need to get their house in order and make sure that the product that they're sending out is in good condition. And that's the end of it, really. But yeah, it's an interesting theory. I certainly hope not. That, you know, maybe we've put all these things out, we've paid for them to be produced, but 75% of them are coming back damaged. What are we going to do with them? We didn't make any money, so now we're going to cut the budget. I really do hope that that is not the case. Steve DeBursa says, hi, Boss Bounty, great show as always. Looking forward to hearing more Comic-Con in a few weeks' time. It is interesting to note how the fan forums with Hasbro appear to have become less of a thing this year, albeit Steve Evans seems to be doing his part to remain connected to the community. Do you think Hasbro has changed their approach in light of fan feedback over the past year or so, or do you see it as just the circumstances of how the year has played out in terms of new releases? I'm hoping we see some great updates from Comic-Con and more insights to the storytelling plan for 2025 and beyond. Thanks, Steve. I'm not 100% sure I understand the question here. Are you talking about the Q&As that they run for fan sites and things like that after reveals? Because those have definitely kind of stopped at the moment. We don't really seem to be involved in those. We had one for the Cantina, but we weren't able to ask questions live. We just had to listen to them answer questions that we kind of sent in, which was a bit weird. And it is a shame, because we had a question last week, I think it was, on this series, where somebody asked, you know, does the new Mos Eisley playset connect to the Cantina? Now, nobody knows 100% for sure if it does or not, but that would have been cleared up in a Q&A, because somebody would have asked that. So if that's what you're saying, or maybe you're saying that they just don't have enough panels and things like that at various events around the year, I'm not too sure if I've really noticed that. We've had Comic-Con and a couple of other things as well, San Diego. So yeah, maybe you're talking about the Q&As, and in that case, yeah, I kind of wish that they would start doing those again. Shannon Patrat says, greetings, Bossk. Bummed I couldn't participate in the live stream last night. Silly family obligations. Question for next week. I think we all know a huge part of the appeal of TVC is the nostalgia of those classic card backs. If you had to pick one or two classic card backs, what would be the one that just sends you back in time to when you were a kid? For me, it has to be Greedo. I don't know what it is about that particular character photo and the old Hildebrandt logo, but seeing that takes me back to 5 years old and reliving the magic of the films at home in the days before we could just pop to the movies and watch them whenever we wanted. And this is what's great about the vintage collection, and what I was talking about earlier about the classic Kenner card back. You know, for those of us that were around when these things were around the first time, the vintage figures that you can see in that case just behind there is a huge amount of nostalgia around those, and I've just put two in front of you here because I can think of others. One that I haven't shown here is the Snowtrooper that just got announced. I mean, that for me is just an absolute classic. I absolutely loved that figure as a kid. The design of the Snowtrooper was just so great, and I'm really, really pleased that we're now getting that in TVC, a brand new figure for it. But the two that I've put in front of you here is because I kind of was more of a child of Return of the Jedi. I was 6/7 in the year that Return of the Jedi was released, and these two figures were the first ones that me and my brother got on the way back from watching the film. I got the Luke Skywalker, he got the Scout Trooper. I think that's the way round it was. I probably ended up having both of them anyway because he's a little bit older than me. But I remember playing all the way home, walking along the beach because we live in a seaside town, and we're walking along the seafront playing with our new figures, and those two card back images there, the Scout Trooper and the Luke Jedi, are two of my absolute favourite. But there's more than that. There's plenty in the line that give me that nostalgic feel, but these two in particular. Tom Jurassic says, great vid as always. Tim, question for next week. How would you feel about a HasLab gunship? I think many of us would like a new gunship which is slightly larger, and doing it as a lower price HasLab could include tiers like the fully enclosed doors from the Clone Wars style dropship, side mounted fog lights, etc. If it was a Clone Wars set, it could also be a way to give us some of the 501st Troopers from the Umbara arc. Let me know what you think. I'm all for this. I think I've said before, you know, the gunship is one of my favourite ships from the prequels, and in all of Star Wars, really. I think it's a really great design, and I would like the one that we have to be a little bit bigger, and it definitely would have to be a HasLab for sure. Whether many other people would be up for that, because of course we do have maybe 5 or 6 releases of that gunship already, and people have already got them in their collections. Maybe they wouldn't be too keen on it, but in terms of like an accuracy, vintage collection quality Republic gunship, I would really get behind that. But there's quite a few other things that I would like in a HasLab as well. But in terms of a prequel thing, I don't think you can get too many better than that in terms of an idea for a HasLab anyway. All the things that you've mentioned there, the enclosed doors, although I would probably expect those to come as part of the ship rather than a tier. But all of those things you've mentioned I'll be up for, mate. And yeah, HasLab gunship would be good. Nino Brown says, question for next week, discussing the mid-range playset. A few items came to mind. I personally would like to see the Destroyer Bridge, Yavin Ceremony and Palpatine's office. Each of these has multiple characters already in TVC, but requires more than a simple backdrop. I would love a TVC Jedi Council, but we need too many figures. My question is, do you believe these ideas are practical? I think the Destroyer Bridge is definitely something that's practical. I've seen 3D printed versions of that which look pretty good. It would help us along the way to get some of the bounty hunters updated that we need. So that one I could see them doing. I think Yavin Ceremony would end up just being like a stage. Personally, I can't really see how they would accomplish that in a smaller playset. And Palpatine's office, would that end up just being a desk and a backdrop? I don't know if there's really too much else that you could really put in there personally. I would love the figures from it, absolutely. All of those figures that are in that scene. But in terms of a playset, in terms of what would actually be included, I'm not too sure if it's practical. But I like all of those ideas, especially from a figure point of view. Mida86 says, hey BB, you're always saying you want a new Vader's tie. I'm curious why. Is the 90s one too small? Bad colour scheme? At least there's a new snowtrooper on the way. Yeah, thank God for that, eh? In terms of the Vader's TIE Fighter, I think it's just one of those things that I just think needs to be updated and put into the vintage collection. It's, you know, it's Darth Vader's ship, for heaven's sake, and in a vintage style box, they released it in the Kenner days. I think it would look awesome. I think it would be a good seller. We've got a Vader for it now. I think the ones that we've had before, whether it be the size, the inaccuracies, or possibly the colour scheme, I think one of them was like a bluey colour. I think none of them are perfect, and I just think, you know, a Vader's tie that's given the vintage collection treatment with loads of detail, sculpting work, weathering, all that kind of good stuff, I think it would look pretty awesome. And, you know, for inbox collectors as well, I think people would want that one. But again, just my opinion, and that's why I've always kind of said that I would like for them to do that. Alright then guys, before we go, be sure to check out my video of the recent Shriek Hawk special action figure set. That review is on the channel. That's it for this week's episode. If you do have a question for next week's episode, be sure to leave it in the comments section of this video. Don't forget, last figure standing semi-final is next Saturday, live stream as well. Don't forget to get your votes in for the characters that you want. Thank you all for watching. Thanks to my Patreon supporters and channel members. Your support means a great deal to me as always, so thank you so much. Thanks for watching everybody, and we shall see you on the next one.